All right, everybody. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to this exclusive trustee program that we have with our special guest, the Mayor of Palm Beach County, David Kerner. My name is Troy McClellan. I am proud to be your president and CEO of the Boca Chamber of Commerce, and we're excited about this program this afternoon with our guest. I want to thank all of the trustee members for all of your support during our trying times, and we're gonna need you to be with us as we go forward as well. And so we're happy to provide these special programs just for you, and we'll continue to do it as we get through our current environment. That we get the mayor like this in this format. So if you're inquisitive, now's the time to ask, and I assure you he will have the answer. So I'm just gonna jump right in. First of all, I'm just going to thank Mayor Kerner for being here today. Mayor, we look forward to hearing from you and having some really good Q&A. So Dave Kerner is the Palm Beach County Mayor. He serves specifically District 3, but obviously looks through the entire, his lens looks to the entire county, especially now. Mayor Kerner was elected to the County Commission in November of 2016. He is a Palm Beach County native. He's born and raised in the unincorporated portion of the district that he serves, number 3. Prior to his election to the Board of County Commissioners, he served 2 terms in the Florida House of Representatives as the ranking member of the Judiciary Committee. And his prior government experience includes service as a police officer and a special prosecutor, all right here in Palm Beach County. Mayor Kerner attended Suncoast Community High School, which is in Riviera Beach, the University of Florida, go Gators, and the University of Florida College of Law. At the age of 19, during his freshman year at the University of Florida, he also attended the Police Academy at Santa Fe Community College and became certified and sworn as a police officer. At the age of 20, while enrolled full-time at UF, Mayor Kerner was honored as the Police Officer of the Year for the city of Alachua, and he also served as the department representative to the Fraternal Order of Police Lodge 62. While serving as a police officer, he was assigned to the night shift and also served as a field training officer. Mayor Kerner has emerged as a leader on issues related to law enforcement. Obviously, that's a passion of his, the judiciary, criminal justice, and civil law, and since 2010, he served as a civil trial attorney with a local firm, in addition to his public service. That's sort of the formal introduction of Mayor Kerner. I want to add some personal comments. And for many of us, the current COVID environment is probably the most challenging situation we've ever been in our lives. Well, imagine being the mayor of Palm Beach County, a seat I do not envy in any way. Mayor Kerner has been that steady face, that steady voice representing our county through it all, and unfortunately it's not over yet, and we're going to continue to need his leadership. He's had the very difficult task of determining policy that tries to balance both the health and economic impacts of this crazy, horrible virus, and he's commended on the job that he has done, tireless efforts. I know we see him all the time giving updates and reports. We need that. We appreciate that, the consistency of communication through it all, both just as human beings and residents of Palm Beach County, and of course, as businesses as we kind of move through this. And so for that reason and many others, Mayor Kerner has earned the endorsement of the Chamber's PAC, Blue PAC, for his reelection bid to continue to serve on the commission in District 3. So Mayor, congrats on that, and we look forward to your continued leadership in that role on the commission. So with all of that and that introduction, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to turn the program right over to Mayor Kerner. And again, Mayor, thanks so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Troy, thank you. And can you hear me all right?
Yes, sir.
Check. Wonderful. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I feel like I should just stop there after that introduction. Can't go downhill from there. Can only go downhill from there. And if I apologize in advance, because despite that very kind introduction, I have my dog over here who's just going crazy. So I'm trying to, if you saw me yelling but didn't hear me yelling, That's because I was yelling on mute. And I want to start by saying thank you so much to Troy and the Chamber. As you can imagine, Palm Beach County is a very large county. It's I think it's the best county in the damn nation, and I love this place. But it's a very large county, and so the Board of County Commissioners, you know, our districts are pretty big. There's 7 of us. There's 1.5 million people. There's 2,000 square miles, and typically we're pretty, you know, confined to our districts. First of all, the districts are big enough to keep us very busy, and second of all, there's a deference to resident commissioners and district commissioners. So you know, we try to stay in our lane, so to speak. But the point is, I don't get an opportunity to get down to Boca, or at least from a professional perspective. We certainly have friends and family there. But you tend to miss out on making connections and friendships in other parts of the county sometime, unless you work really diligently at getting outside of your district and your voter base. And for better or for worse, having the honor of serving as the county mayor during this very peculiar but very challenging time in the history of our nation, and certainly in the history of our county, has exposed me to other elements and other demographics and other communities of this county that I knew existed, but never really had the opportunity to really get to know on an organic level. And so I don't think that I've interviewed with Boca Chamber before. I don't think I've had a lot of interaction with the Chamber. I can tell from initial interactions and screenings that you guys are very well run, very focused on enhancing consumer opportunities in Boca and having a strong voice for business. And I really commend and appreciate that. It's a civic duty and it's a civic obligation. But, you know, to sum things up, I really appreciate the endorsement. And I really appreciate that you guys took the time to reach out to county commissioners that don't necessarily live in or near Boca Raton. You're doing yourself a huge service by reaching out to and you know, getting to know better the people that make some important decisions in your county, and whether you can vote for us or not, because the single member district, it's very impactful on your members who's representing the board. We are county commissioners. We may live in a district, but you know, our impact is countywide. And I just wanted to say thank you for going that extra mile for me and for all the candidates that are running in this cycle, and for the due diligence that you guys did in endorsing not just myself, but every member or every candidate that you ended up endorsing, and the folks that didn't get endorsed. Well, you still found a way to obtain and maintain a relationship with them, because typically if someone's interested sincerely in public service and elected office, you know, you usually don't win your first time around. So thank you again for endorsing me. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you for the very kind words related to my history in government. I think if you can tell anything about me, besides that I don't have a well-trained dog, that I care deeply about government service. My father was a Lake Worth police officer for since the late 60s, and I was born and raised here. And he's with the law firm Lytle and Ryder now, but he served all the way up to deputy chief and retired in 1995. And so I grew up in that spirit of service. My mother was a federal government employee for the IRS. We weren't a very popular family, a cop and an IRS agent. But nonetheless, I found very early on a passion for government service, and went to University of Florida, big Gator fans. I think that my psychological profile has gotten somewhat back to normal since college football has started. I think we take for granted some of the American traditions and pastimes that we love so dearly, and college football was one, and COVID taught us a lot. And so going beyond the Gators, as you know, I served as a police officer. It was something that was very impactful in my life. I started when I was 19 and served as a special prosecutor here in Palm Beach County. Served in the Florida House of Representatives, and then that eventually brought me to the Board of County Commissioners. And I tell you all this because ultimately I know that we can talk about COVID and we can talk about whatever it is you folks want to talk about in the Q&A, but ultimately my hope is that through these comments, I've inspired at least one or two people to really take that next level civic mindedness and civic obligation and move forward in something that maybe you've been thinking of, you've wanted to do as a public service, whether that's running for office, whether it's getting more involved in your chamber, whether it's moving up the chamber, chain of command or what have you, or going to Leadership Florida or Leadership Palm Beach County. I can tell you that looking back after 10 years, after having been beat up both as a police officer and as the county mayor here most recently in a metaphorical sense, I wouldn't want to spend at least a portion of my life any other way than in public service. And in the background during all of this, I've had the honor and pleasure of serving in a trial lawyer capacity, and now really more, I won't say appellate attorney, but more complex federal class action stuff. I've been doing that for 10 years with a local firm named Schuler, Halverson, Weiser up in West Palm Beach, Florida. And it's practicing law has been very fulfilling, but public service has been the light of my life. And so when I get these opportunities to speak, in a general sense, because typically when I'm speaking, there's a particular point that needs to be made, whether it's a press conference or it's a rowdy bunch of civic-minded residents at a Board of County Commissioners hearing. It's actually pretty rare for me to just get an opportunity to speak to like-minded, professional, articulate, invested people, and I mean invested in our community, folks like yourself. And so today's one of those opportunities, and what I like to really pass along, besides trying to inspire some more civic participation, is also really how proud you should be of your local government and of your local community. And what I mean by that is, and I'll take some creative license here and speak bluntly with you about some of the disappointments that I've had in government service. I've served in a lot of different government institutions. I've served as a city police officer. I've served as a county commissioner. I've served as a state lawmaker or state representative, as a state prosecutor, and as a state law enforcement officer. And so I've gone through a pretty wide array from city to county to state, to the court system, the 4th District Court of Appeal. I found myself, as I grew up, much of a student of institutions. And what does that mean? Well, there's 67 counties, so there's 67 county commissions, and there's 2 chambers in our legislative bodies, in the Senate and the House, in the Florida legislature. There's a school district, there's a healthcare district. There are a lot of important institutions that when we talk about the government, that actually comprise the state and local units of government. And each institution is its very own unique monster sometimes, with, depending on the size of it and what the focus is and what the revenues are and what the budgets are and what the taxing authority are. Each institution has its own esprit de corps, its own level of professionalism, its own moral compass, if you will. And I've learned to sort of step back and look at some of those things as an academic exercise. And one of the things that I found in the Florida House of Representatives, where I served for 4 years, which was, by the way, I always say getting sworn in as a police officer was the most impactful moment and proudest moment of my life for a couple of reasons. But, getting elected to the House of Representatives was pretty cool also. And when I got up there, I was so pumped. And then after 2 terms, but 4 years, I just was disenchanted with it. It was not something that I thought was people were taking it very seriously, but the decisions were made before you got there. It was all about partisanship. It was all about ideology, so to speak. And there wasn't a whole lot of great work getting done, which was the catalyst now for leaving there and returning home to serve on the Board of County Commissioners. And just by way of a brief background on your local government, it's a $5.5 billion budget. It doesn't oversee the constitutional offices in any way. They're independent, such as the sheriff, state attorney, clerk and comptroller, supervisor of elections, property appraiser. But we do fund a lot of those, or you do as taxpayers fund a lot of the budgets of those offices, and there's a little bit of oversight. There's 30 departments, there's 39 cities, there's 5,000 employees. It is a bulky, very professionally run very effective and very passionate unit government. And I can't say that about my time in the state government for whatever reason. It's more of a partisan institution. Now, fast forward to where we're at today, and we kind of rotate the mayor position amongst. We don't necessarily rotate it, but it's a very collegial body in the sense that we're all co-equal members, but we also are colleagues as well. And so we try not to. We try to make sure that we remain co-equal, and so that the service as chairman of the board, as it used to be called, or as mayor of the county now, we have to be cognizant that we're still co-equal members of the board. And while that person serves in that leadership capacity, it was never meant to be a strong mayor, and that is by design. Like the city of West Palm Beach is a strong mayor. We are not. We are a professional manager form of government, and I'd certainly agree with that more on an academic and operational level than any other form of government. We don't want to inject politics into a lot of the issues that we deal with. But what I can tell you is, having literally stepped off an airplane in March, I came from Europe for a couple of weeks with some of my friends, and we were gone for about 3 weeks. And I landed in Miami, and the next day I held my first press conference because the first case of COVID arrived in Palm Beach County. And much like you've experienced in your lives, things changed rapidly, without precedent, with huge impact, and probably have changed in a way that we will never see a reversion or reverting back to what we used to be, whatever that may have been. The calculus and at an organic level, our community and our country has changed and is in the midst of change presently, with a very important election ahead of us. But if we fast forward from March until where we're at now, yes, I was and am the county mayor, but I can promise you, I joke, I play one on TV is what I tell people. I don't have a lot of the authority that people believe that a mayor has. I have obligation to be deferential to the board. I have an obligation to speak on their behalf, but not make their decisions. I have to contend with a very strong, but very, very effective county administrator. So oftentimes I serve as a liaison between the legislative and executive branches of this very large government. But oftentimes decisions being made, while I agree with them and stand behind them 100% of the time, you will never see me on a different page than my county administrator or colleagues that I work with. Once the decision's made, we move forward as a team. But I've seen this government run from a unique position that no one will ever get to see in their life. And that was is as the county mayor. And if I can boil all of my observations down into one, it would be that I'm very proud of this county, and I'm very proud of this unit of government that I happen to be the momentary head of, and that we should all be very proud of our county, its response, and the potential that we have. And I think that's particularly important, and probably pretty obvious to members of the Boca Chamber or members of the West Palm Beach Central Chamber, what have you. By design, you are business owners and educated and intelligent, and you can see that the type of economy and the type of property values and the type of infrastructure that this county has, while not perfect, certainly didn't happen by accident, and certainly doesn't happen without a robust tax base. But for that robust tax base to be there, you'd probably have to have a pretty effective government to help us along the way, help build the roads, help keep taxes low or reasonable, help fund properly incredibly important departments like the sheriff's office and fire rescue, and the men and women that fly our helicopters, Trauma Hawk. Even from an environmental perspective, there's so much that this government does that is done in a professional way, and that I'm very proud of, and particularly our COVID response. If you look back at some of the highlights, and certainly I'm not trying to message subconsciously to anybody that we're through this. I think quite the opposite. We have probably a pretty rambunctious couple months ahead of us politically, and I think we have a pretty challenging road ahead of us health-wise, and obviously economically over the next several months. But what I can tell you is that a lot of the operational response reactive operational, I mean. So we need to get a testing site open here. We need to get a testing site open there. We need to get this PP here. We need to get ordered. We need to get supply chains open. That was a hell of a ride. And I think that we have our infrastructure, and we've done this for quite a while now, and we have what we need, and we will continue to have what we need. But to watch all that be obtained, set up, accounted for, interacting with the National Guard, the governor's office, many units of government, to watch this process hundreds of thousands of people through testing sites, watching this county disperse $261 million, a lot of which went or will go to business owners that are hurting in terms of grants and rental assistance and mortgage assistance. Certainly people have pointed out to me that, and I've had a lot of critics, and that comes, believe me, that comes with the territory. And I think being a police officer prepared me for this moment in time, because I take the criticism seriously, but I don't let it, I don't get depressed or anything like that. It hurts my heart to see some of the interactions and dialogue that we have on a day-to-day basis in politics. But what I will say is that to watch all that happen in real time, and to get these items and just so much equipment, so many different objectives needed to be accomplished, so many people needed to be attended to. And I watched this government grow into something that it had never had to be before. What my point earlier that I was going to make is that, yes, there's a correlation between urban density, and there's a correlation between the time of year, and there's a correlation between the trends of Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, and the state at large. I mean, we kind of saw an up and down that was in confluence with a lot of other counties. But what I will tell you is all that effort and all that professionalism that this government and its members have exhibited, and the members of this county, that while the trends still go up and down together, if you can compress the closing time on this end, and then also make sure that there's enough hospital capacity on this end, and we get our schools open earlier, and we make sure the hospital surge capacity was never ran over and was always open, and getting our phase 2 open earlier, and having a lower positivity rate. All that translates to is more economic activity. Kids get back to school earlier, and less people get sick and die. And while the trends may be consistent, if we move that needle any bit on the left or right side of the bell curve, that's a big deal. That's a big deal to me, and that's a big deal to the people it affected. And I can tell you that this county government, with the help of the residents and the help of everybody involved in this at every level of government, we were able to get open earlier. We were able to save lives. We were able to save homes. We were able to get our schools open first. We were able to get our restaurants open first. We were the first into phase 1, first into phase 2. And we did it in a way that was both safe and cognizant of our duties on both sides of the equation. And that should show you some of the value, not of my leadership, believe me, that's not what this is about, but the value of a well-run, well-capitalized, very focused, and highly professional unit of government is a partner of yours, and it's something that we should all be proud of. So I know that we have a long way to go, and I'm not going to be the mayor forever, which is a fine result for me, but I should be done next month, and hopefully I'll be reelected and serve another 4-year term, and in much part thanks to your endorsement and support. But as we walk away from this, let's be inspired a little bit by what we can accomplish, whether it's as a community or as a government or as a volunteer organization or a civic organization. If we do it together, I think this pandemic has taught us the value of the American spirit, and it's taught us the value of good government. And I know that I have some questions coming, and I'm excited for that. And I know that I have detractors, and I know there are people that say we overstepped our authority with the masks or with the COVID education compliance team. I can promise you that anything that I did and anything that members of this government did was with a kind heart and in what we thought was the best interest of the livelihood of the men and women that call this county home. So I've gone on for quite a while. Hopefully I still have some people still listening. And if you have any questions, I think now would be an opportune time for that, Troy.
Yeah, Mayor Kerner, thank you very much for those comments and remarks. We do have some questions, and I'm going to get my video started here so you can see me. There I am. All right. First of all, as the son of a retired police officer, I can relate and appreciate that part of your life and experience, and thank you for that. There was a question about sort of the governance, and you actually addressed it in your comments about sort of this administrator commission relationship, and clearly it was tested. Clearly it was tried during this situation. So you answered that. So thank you. Appreciate for that. I don't know if many of the attendees know that it was actually during former Boca Raton Mayor, former Boca Raton District Stephen Abrams' time that this title, when it was chair of the commission, we were so used to, and then it went to mayor, and it confused everybody for a while because there's mayors and cities and stuff, and it was not, as you pointed out, a strong mayor. What was back then, what was your reaction, not to throw Commissioner Mayor Abrams under the bus, I'm just curious, now knowing, being in this seat, in a wicked hot seat at the moment, what do you think about sort of the change between the chair of that board and the mayor of the board?
Well, I can tell you that Stephen Abrams and I served together on the board, and we have thrown each other over the bus several times as a result, and we're dear friends. And he's doing what he loves right now with the South Florida Regional Transit Authority. I'm a very how do I say this without sounding silly? Okay, so I'm a nerd when it comes to Florida history. I love the state of Florida. I love the University of Florida. I love the history of the state. I have some great books if anyone shares that passion with me, which is unusual to find someone that does. But having said that, I'm sort of a traditional guy in that sense. And the chief elected official of the county, which is defined as the chairman of the Board of County Commissioners, that title comes from generations of tradition, but also from the Constitution itself. And so when I saw Palm Beach County, my county, I think I was up in Gainesville at the time, I said, oh, they're calling the chairman, mayor, that's silly. Who do they think they are? Just trying to sound important. And I didn't like it. And I've gone back and forth with Karen Marcus about this, who's sort of a mentor of mine and a friend of mine. And she was the chair. And the truth is, after having gone through, I think, what can only be described as an unprecedented tax and pressure on local government as an operational unit of government, because that's what the county is. And when you consider that we have 39 cities, and we're more of a regional government, and that issues rarely affect one city alone, that the goal was accomplished, and that was to bring some notoriety to the chairman of the board by calling him or her county mayor. We are the county mayor. We do have some increased authority. We do have some executive authority. We do have some emergency powers. And I think if with the right person in there, with the right title under the right circumstances, it was a big benefit. And I think that I did a job that passes for competence. And I think that I led in a strong way at times and backed off when necessary. But I think having that title accomplished exactly what needed to be accomplished, which was there needs to be one leader of this county, and he or she better be elected, right? Because I'm not going to put our county administrator out there as the face of this county and as a decision maker when no one's ever voted for her. And so I made a decision to be the face of the county, not for my own benefit, believe me, not to my own benefit, but because we're entitled to have an elected leader lead us, even if it's in a figurehead position, which it wasn't. It was a little bit more than that. So I'm glad that the 3 South Florida counties have county mayors, because they are all regions and we're all one region, but you still need that one face. And I think between the 3 counties, there's over 100 cities, and Miami-Dade has a strong county mayor. And the governor even put in his order sort of requirement for each county mayor to work directly with him and make some decisions. And so I think, it's not form over substance, but I think that it's worked well in this particular scenario. And when I said that things have changed and may never go back, I think that now most people know we have a figurehead as a county mayor, and we're kind of used to it, and we'll move on from it.
Yeah. With that said, Mayor, do you think then, sort of structurally then, is with Miami-Dade having a strong county mayor, do you think that would be a direction that our county or other counties would go in? Would that be beneficial, do you think?
I really hope not. I think that local government is less about ideology and more about where the rubber meets the road, literally, like roads and fire hydrants and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a strong mayor works well in some metro areas where you have sort of a consolidated city county. You can use like Cook County, Chicago, Atlanta, which is made up of 2 counties, New York City, which is made up of 5 boroughs or counties, but 1 city. But in a place like Palm Beach County, we have our own communities here. We have our own identities. And you don't want politics injected into a lot of the stuff that we actually do. And having a strong mayor would do that. So I think it's better to have a co-equal board and then a professional manager and keep politics out of it. Which is what I try to do, by the way, as the county mayor. I went to the ends of the earth to work with our governor, and I think very highly of him. But you would never know that I was a Democrat and he was a Republican or whatever, because that's not what my role is, and it's not who I am. So I think, all is well that ends well.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks. Do you think, Mayor, under the current circumstances, that the commission would vote you to stay as mayor, given the uniqueness of this, and we maintain the continuity of your leadership through these unique times?
There's been some discussion about that, to be honest with you. Obviously not amongst the members of the board and myself, but certainly the stakeholders, chamber leaders, even some members of administration have floated the idea to me. I do think there's probably some value in having a 2-year term as the weak mayor of the board, because mostly for Verdinia's sake. I mean, I don't know how, under normal times, it's difficult to rotate through leadership. And believe me, the county mayor and the administrator work day in and day out together. It's a special relationship. And I wake up every day to make sure that her life is easy and that I'm not injecting politics or stepping outside of our lane. But when you rotate through so many commissioners, eventually you're going to hit one that just doesn't care or just wants to start fights. Or just has such a different leadership style. Remember, we're elected officials, so something was wrong with us to get into this business to begin with. I can promise you find some pretty wild elected officials, whether it's in Palm Beach County or elsewhere. They have personalities and all this kind of stuff going on. And I think for Virginia and for the professional staff's sake, the upper staff, that it would be good to have 2-year terms. And that's just my thought. And maybe the board will do that, but I don't like to talk publicly about me serving a second year because I don't want to interfere with that decision-making process, which is coming up in November.
But if provided the opportunity, you would accept. If asked, you would serve.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm a glutton for punishment. Yeah. I love this. No, I mean, Troy, this has been one of the most humbling moments of my life, by the way, but also one of the most biggest honors I could ever have. I mean, I got to lead my hometown where I was born and raised through a very difficult time period.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I would do it again. So
good to hear. So, Mayor, we got some additional questions. We want to get to them for sure. And you've addressed it, and I appreciate how you kind of framed where we are today with COVID, and whether it's a matter of we're used to it, but the infrastructure now is in place. All the hard work that you did up front when it was new and crazy and chaotic, it's not that it's gone. It's just that we're all responding to it better, more efficiently, testing sites, testing opportunities, availabilities, hopefully a lot of personal responsibility out there from everyone in the county. How would you describe the current status now? of Palm Beach County as it relates to COVID-19? It might be broad, but just the general reaction from you.
Well, it's a broad question, but I certainly have an avenue or an angle that I directly go to, and that is, first of all, it's been hilarious what titles do to you, because, you know, people are like, well, is there going to be a second wave, or you know, just the most crazy technical question. It's like, I have no idea, folks. I'm the same person as you. I don't have like a line of the White House that tells me that the models show there's going to be a second wave, but I don't know. I don't know anything about pandemics. I know a lot about it now, but coming into this, I had no idea. I think, like you said, we've learned to deal and cope with it. Our positivity rate's been incredibly low. I mean, we've led the state, and we've led every county in the state at most of the points in time. And it seems to be very stabilized. And what I can tell you is that Governor DeSantis, the one time that I got very nervous in working with him and him sort of overruling me, which is his prerogative, but once the decision's made, we act on it together, was when he moved us to phase 3 and took away all of our regulatory authority. By the way, in the background, throughout this entire process, the governor was very laudatory. He was very complimentary about the regulations that we had and how we enforced them, and that they were fine for our community, but they probably wouldn't fly up in Union, Bradford, Dixie, St. John's, Ocala, Marion County, all those counties and cities, and they don't have the population that they needed it, or a mandatory mask order. But to answer your question directly, I think that we learn something new every day, and we've all learned how to deal with this thing, and it's a pain in the ass. And I'm just going to be candid with you guys and use the word ass. It's a pain in the ass, and you all know that better than I do. I wear a mask everywhere I go, and it's turned into a political divide. But if we're talking about health metrics, we're going to have to kind of struggle through these next 12 months, just being cognizant of what's ahead of us. But the good news is, like you pointed out, Troy, our infrastructure, our compassion as a community, and our resources are all there to make sure that we get through it with as little impact as possible.
Yeah. And we are fortunate, you know, I can speak sort of to the South County part of it, fortunate to have great, you know, healthcare systems. We have the Baptist healthcare system, obviously, here in Boca Raton Regional. We've got the 2 Bethesdas in Boynton. And so we're blessed to have, you know, just truly great systems of West Boca Medical Center, the Tennant Center out in the western part of our community, great healthcare systems, you know, partnering with us, you know, through this to, you know, so that we can and have maintained such great numbers, such great metrics, you know, wrapped around this. And you're right, we have sort of been a leader, and that's all with saying that, you know, we were one of 3 counties, although we led, as you pointed out, we led through it all over the other 2, but we still were in that, you know, I don't want to say stepchildren sort of, you know, behind the curve all the time, you know, waiting. But again, understanding the demographics, the unique set of circumstances where we are in Southeast Florida, but proud to be a part of the county that did lead us out of that, you know, when we could. And it should not be lost on anyone, Mayor, your work with the governor, you know, your great work with the governor. I know that you're communicating with him, if not every day, almost, and communicating, you know, the challenges here in Palm Beach County. And he has counted a lot on your leadership, still does. And so you're to be commended about that, as well as your patience. We've been on these programs where we're watching you run a meeting, and some of the most craziest things I might have ever seen in a public meeting in my whole life has happened, you know, to you, and you are the mayor. You are holding that, and I just the amazing amount of patience. I don't know how come you don't have gray hair yet. I mean,
I do.
You still look like you just graduated from UF, but I mean, you're maintaining so well under like just such extreme circumstances every day, but to be commended about that. All right, let me get to another question, and thank you for that sort of the COVID assessment. And, you know, the business community is, you know, was looking forward to phase 3 and what that meant. But we're still very deliberate about how, you know, we're operating to continue to be safe, et cetera. And I appreciate, you know, your empathy to that as well, because as I think we've learned, there's the health crisis of COVID, and then there's some economic crises that actually could lead into additional other health kind of scenarios. And again, you being in law enforcement know probably better than anyone else. So I appreciate that very much. All right. So we've got a question here about Palm Beach County in general, but aside from COVID, as hard as it is to think aside from COVID, what are the top 3 other major issues that you think that Palm Beach County will be confronting in the near term?
Well, I don't think that if I had to rank the top 3, and there's a lot, but we do actually convene every year and decide, you know, what are the general things that we think we're going to need to tackle this year. I don't think they've changed much because of COVID. If we insert or take COVID out as one of those things, all of those sort of institutional and life challenges that come with COVID are some of the things that we struggled with to begin with. So workforce housing, affordable housing, that has just been escalated in severity because of COVID, right? Because while most people had a good job before and couldn't afford, now a lot of people don't, so it's just escalated. And then that's true with homelessness. I mean, before COVID started, y'all probably remember some conversations and some actions that went that dealt with the John Prince Park homeless camp. I don't know if you guys followed it at all, but I had like 200 people living in John Prince Park.
Yeah.
That resolved very well, but be that as it may, that whole wheelhouse of homelessness and issue is going to escalate because of COVID. And then I think that one that may be unforeseen previously and is new is probably some of the funding, and this sounds very self-serving because I'm an appropriations officer at the end of the day. I take your tax money and we send it places, is really a lot of what we do. But we do it with a kind heart. I think that you're going to see some revenues change from a governmental collection perspective, particularly in collections that are tied to sales tax and transactions and things of that nature. Our property, I'm the chairman of the Value Adjustment Board, again, because I'm a nerd and I love it. And I love like the system that we have of challenging your valuations by the property appraiser. And I like to be involved in that. But the bottom line is, for the foreseeable future, unless there's some sort of overarching recession or depression, our property values have stayed somewhat consistent and strong. But I do think when we look at the tourist development tax and our infrastructure surtax, which is that one penny that goes to our roads and a lot of other things, I think we may see some local government challenges with our budgets. And that sort of affects, if you have a good, efficient unit of government, that money is being spent with a good return on it in terms of government services. So we may see some of that struggling.
Right. Okay, thank you for that answer. Another one is a little bit more specific to the business community, and it asks what you and your colleagues on the commission plan to do, can do to assist the parts of the business community that have suffered, you know, maybe the most. I know we've had that $261 million from the CARES Act. I know it's reopened, as I understand. Anything more sort of strategically, Mayor, thinking about, you know, the business community in general, but perhaps those more, you know, the retail, restaurant, hospitality, where all these jobs have been lost. Any thought or strategy wrapped around how you, the government, can continue to help in those areas? Yeah,
so we have of the $261 million that was given to us by the federal government, and I say give, I'm cognizant that this is taxpayer money no matter where it came from, but they literally did just wire local governments a lot of money in the middle of all this, and they wired us $261 million. And we've used the operational side of it, we've used pretty well. We've mailed masks to everybody and some controversial stuff like that. I guess didn't realize how controversial that would be when we did it, but on the other side are ways to help small businesses. And we did our first disbursement, which was capped at $25,000, and there was a set off for the PPP loan. And I think at the end of the day, it helped a lot of the really small business, mom and pop shops, nail salons, things like that, stay afloat to a certain degree. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It wasn't capital that could sustain a very large operation for any period of time. That was really more the federal government's role. But what we did yesterday was we reappropriated, I think, another $40 million. And we're gonna do another round of $25,000 grants that are you don't have to, it's non, or it doesn't have to be paid back. But then we're gonna take one more stab with the residual monies left to really try to help and again, this is all decided by the board, so it's not necessarily my decision. But I'd like to see that we pay some special attention to the bar service industry, and then also remove the $25,000 cap, and also remove the PPP set off, which we did yesterday, and give some of these really impacted companies that really need a leg up or a hand up, see if we can utilize some target specific monies for them. But it's not going to solve the problem. We know that.
Yeah, well, that's true. Well, thanks for that. I'm glad that, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness on it, and continuing to look at ways, to use that money sort of to its maximum use, I guess I'd say.
Yeah.
Mayor, we've got a question about masks. It's an interesting one. I like it. It says, how will we communicate to visitors from other states during the colder months when we expect them to follow the mask guidelines? Is that being communicated prior to them leaving? Or are we recommending to work with Jorge Pesquera and Discover the Palm Beaches to push that message, via the time of booking reservations? Any thoughts on that?
Well, let's see how many people I can piss off at once. That's something that I'm really good at, apparently, since I was 19 and became a police officer. So with removing politics from this,
yeah,
I will tell you that our northeastern neighbors are typically happy to wear masks. Most of them live in more urban, dense areas where the culture is not been as combative on the masks. A lot of them are from, again, ideology-wise, and this isn't a debate about ideology, but a lot of them are from northeastern states that have Democratic governors that did the mask mandate to begin with at some level at the state level. And I don't begrudge our governor. I think that when you look at the state of Florida, the diversity of the state of Florida, both in culture and in population, he probably would have gotten into a lot more trouble than it was worth if he tried to mandate masks again in Dixie County or Union County or Bradford County, or hell, even Duval, and definitely up in the Panhandle, that would have gone well. So I think that to answer your question is we have an inviting constituency that I think is predisposed to wear masks. They're typically older, so they're more cautious about wearing masks. And I don't think that we may necessarily have a mask mandate back or looking to that point in time when they return. We renew it every 30 days under my authority as the county mayor under the emergency powers. And it's not going to be in perpetuity because, like you said, Troy, really what we're experiencing today is less government intervention, as the governor has pointed out, by removing some of our authorities, and more just existing and learning to live with this as a society without the government's help. And I think wherever we're at that point in time when folks come back, we will have to be able to execute on it out of a civic-minded and public health obligation, not because the government told us to do it.
Yeah, good answer. Appreciate that. By the way, speaking of masks, we do have a comment on here thanking the county for the masks that were sent in the mail. I know there's some debate on that issue, but this person is thankful for the masks. And then the other question is, if a person didn't receive their masks and they live in Palm Beach County, what do they do? Because we see everybody with the branded masks, and I'll run, I haven't got my mask yet. What do? What should I tell them next time I run into them there?
Well, so Lexi Null, who is a CBS 12 reporter that I work well with, she was up in Disney World last weekend, and she texted me. She said, "I got to tell you how awesome it is to see all these Palm Beach County masks all over Disney World, and people come up to me and say, 'Where are you from in Palm Beach County?' And it's been kind of a cool experience in that regard." and man, they're still out there. Like, you see those masks everywhere, and you just know that, you know, Americans, you got to give us something. If you want us to use it, you got to give it to us. And so that was the mentality there. So let me make sure I understand the question correctly.
If you haven't received your masks, what do you do?
The reason I say this is because I know my staff is watching, and I'm about to give my phone number out, our district phone number. It's 561-355-2203. And you can call that and get the masks. And I'm just waiting for someone to text me, stop giving our phone number out, because I give it out everywhere. And that sounds bad, because listen, they're more than half there. They love to work with the community, but there are times where I'm like on the national news or whatever, and I'm like, oh, we'll call 355-2203, and then like 1,000 calls will come in, and Catherine will be yelling at me. So I apologize. I was making light of something that I shouldn't. But 355-2203. We can't guarantee colors, but we will get you the masks, and we'll get it to you directly.
Well, that's the next issue, of course, Mayor, is, you know, now people want to be fashion forward and have all these different colors to wear with their outfits. That's the next thing you'll be up against.
Don't I know it?
Other colors. I will, on a serious note, I would offer the chamber sort of here in South Palm Beach County, Boca Raton, Delray, Boca. If you wanted to use us as an outlet to, you know, and be a space to distribute, I would offer that. We'd be happy to help your office, help the county with that. I don't know, you know, how, if it's overwhelming right now because of requests, but just keep that in mind, Mayor. If we can help, if you would want that, that's all.
I appreciate that, and we actually utilize that help. I'll tell Robert Weinroth it'd be more appropriate if he would, because each
Certainly.
commissioner has,
Yeah.
you know, their masks, and we try to get them
Yeah.
out to the community. I'll have him get in touch with you. But you guys have always been, not you in particular, and because I haven't had the chance to work with you, but the chambers that I have worked with have been very helpful throughout all this, and you guys have been leadership organizations. So thank you for that, and I mean that sincerely.
Well, I appreciate that, Mayor. That brings us to our next question, and we're this hour flew by so wicked fast. But the next question is, what can we do as the business community? You've got a lot of people on this call, a lot of people in South Palm Beach County care very deeply about our county, the success of it, both on the healthcare standpoint, obviously on the economic standpoint. You know, if there were just a couple things, Mayor, that you could say to me, to the people on this call, that I could transfer to the rest of the business community, what could we do to help you as the business community? Not just get through COVID. I think we're pretty good about that. Unfortunately, we know all too much about how to continue to get through it. But even beyond that, how can we help you, your colleagues, the county in general, be a better county, maybe be a more efficient county? Have there been, quite frankly, some things through COVID that we've learned that we can operate as a county more efficiently, save more money because we realized we could, being forced into this position? So open to any of your suggestions how we can help.
I'm going to take a more of a 50,000 foot level idealistic request. So I think that we're all at a place at this point where, regardless of our past prior life experience, I think collectively as a society, we're a little bit worn out, and not just because of COVID, but because the tenor and tone of dialogue and a race to the left or the right. I don't want this to be an indictment of government and politics and partisanship, because politics means the political process, and the political process means that we're allowed to vote for who we want, and those people that win get to lead our community, and that's a great thing. That's democracy. So the political process is another word for democracy, and it's something that I'm very passionate about. What I would say, though, is for me, one of the more challenging things for me personally, and one of the ways that I've tried to lead to try to combat this ill is, again, a general spirit of negativity and an unwillingness to listen to other viewpoints, and a lack of boundaries in how we treat other human beings, whether it's in person or through a computer screen or by Zoom. I would ask that as leaders and business owners and people that on average are probably doing a little bit better than many other people in our society, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but I would challenge you to lead in compassion and in the way we treat other people, particularly when we're talking about government and we're talking about opponents, or we're talking about the government response to COVID or to North Korea, whatever. It's easy to say, oh, F this COVID and F this governor and F this mayor and F this government and God, everything sucks. That's easy to go to and it's easy to hide behind that. But it's also really starting to hurt our communities in a lot of ways. And it's hurt me in a sense that I've been beat up as a cop, and you heal from that. And I've been beat up verbally as a cop every day of my life when I was. And so I've just grown very emotionless about some of this stuff. But what I will tell you is that my heart hurts because it's hurting society at large. It's not hurting me when you attack me on whatever on Facebook, but this way of being an American is not working very well, and it's hurting our prospects. It's hurting our national security. When you say F the mask, or it's all partisan and it's a pandemic, or whatever side of the aisle you are on, we need to come closer together, because the less time the longer it takes to recover from this. Let's say we don't wear masks or whatever the worst case scenario is. If you look at that from a 50,000 foot level, if our economy is not up and running, then neither is our national security, and neither is our military, and neither are our defense forces, our cyber defense forces. There's so much intertwined to the health of our economy. So anything that we can do to bolster that, and I think we can change the needle by becoming close, loving Americans once again, under the most difficult of circumstances, would be the best outcome that we as everyday citizens can contribute to.
That's very well said, Mayor. I think so as business leaders, we can lead with compassion and overall understanding and respect for the situation at hand. But very well said. It is exactly 3 o'clock. We got to almost every question that we had. Mayor, I can't thank you enough. This may have been the quickest Zoom hour I've had. And it always is when, we've got such a great speaker, a great guest, speaking with such authority on these critical questions and issues that we're talking about. Again, I just want to reiterate our appreciation for your leadership. Whether it's in the capacity of mayor going forward or not, you're still going to hopefully be up on that seat. We want to make sure that you do and get reelected. So we'll look forward to working with you for a whole other term. That's a lot of time for us to continue to build our relationship, do what we can here in this region of our awesome county. I agree with you. I think it's the greatest county in the country, of course. And I know you're accessible. Thank you for that. Thanks for being open and honest with answers and providing what I think was a tremendous value in the past hour that just went by wicked quick. So thank you, Mayor Kerner. Thanks to everyone who joined today. I'm sure you learned. You're smarter coming off this call than when you were coming in the call. And if you hadn't had a chance to chat like this somewhat intimately with Mayor Kerner, I hope you've had a chance to get to know the person, not just the mayor, but the person behind the mayor. And I hope you like what you see, like we like what we see. And again, the reason for our endorsement. So make sure you go out and vote on the 3rd. Make sure when you get to that part of your ballot, if that's your district, you vote for Mayor Kerner. You keep him on the commission so he can continue to do all the good works that he has demonstrated through this crisis. So I'll let everybody go. Have an awesome rest of the afternoon. We got a few hours left. We'll see you soon on a future Zoom. And again, Mayor Kerner, thank you so much. We appreciate it. We'll
Thank you, Troy. I really enjoyed myself. Bye, guys.
All right. Bye, everybody.